We've spent the past month playing Age of Innovation and Terra Mystica back to back, and I'm just going to say it. Age of Innovation is the better game for what I want.
Oh, here we go. Look, I love you, but you're wrong about that. Terra Mystica is tighter, more balanced, and honestly, more fun for most people. But that's exactly why this comparison matters. These games are so close that the buy this, not that answer depends entirely on who you are as a gamer and what you value in your hobby.
Fine, let's settle this properly then. Buckle up, folks.
So here's what we've been doing. We literally played both games back to back for the past several weeks. Same group of 4 core players, rotating through different player counts systematically. Terra Mystica is the 2012 classic designed by Helge Ostertag and Jens Drugmuller, published by Froyland Spieler and Capstone Games for 2 to 5 players. It sits at number 36 on Board Game Geek with a 4.0 complexity weight and an 8.0 rating. Age of Innovation is basically Terra Mystica 2.0, released in 2023 by Ostertag solo, supporting 1 to 5 players with a 4.3 complexity rating and currently scoring an 8.5 on BGG. Both games claim 60 to 150 minutes on the box, but in our actual comparative sessions, Terra Mystica consistently ran 2.5 to 3 hours at 4 players, while Age of Innovation clocked in at 2 to 2.5 hours with identical group size and experience level.
The big mechanical difference everyone talks about is the faction system, and it's legitimately significant. Terra Mystica gives you 14 pre-built factions. You pick halflings, nomads, chaos magicians, whatever speaks to you, and that's your faction identity for the entire game. The board is static, same hex layout every time you play. Age of Innovation completely blows this concept open with modular faction drafting. During setup, you're drafting 12 different races, 7 terrain types, and 17 palace abilities, creating over 1,400 possible faction combinations that could theoretically exist.
And that's where my skepticism about Age of Innovation really kicks in hard. More variety sounds amazing on paper, infinite combinations, fresh every game, infinite replayability potential, but does it actually make a better game? Or does it just create chaos and imbalance? Because here's what we discovered in our sessions. Some faction combos in Age of Innovation were absurdly overpowered while others felt weak and uncompetitive. The Blessed race combined with engineering terrain and a specific palace ability absolutely dominated one of our games. Meanwhile, another player's drafted combination couldn't generate enough resources to stay competitive. Terra Mystica's factions have been extensively play-tested for over a decade. There's massive community wisdom about which factions counter which strategies.
Sure, but that variety kept us coming back to Age of Innovation more often. After 10 Terra Mystica plays using the same group composition, we started seeing the same strategic patterns repeat. Certain players gravitated toward the same factions because they understood those matchups. Age of Innovation felt genuinely fresh every single session we played because the faction you drafted fundamentally changed your entire strategic approach and available options.
Okay, so both games share the same fundamental action structure. You take turns performing one action from a menu until everyone passes consecutively. Your action menu includes transform and build, upgrade buildings, improve abilities like terraforming efficiency or shipping range, send priests or scholars up cult or science tracks, spend from power bowls, use special faction or location abilities, and pass. The Power Bowl system is literally identical in both games, and it's absolutely brilliant mechanically. You have 3 bowls with tokens cycling through them. When opponents build adjacent to your structures, tokens move from bowl 1 to bowl 2. You can then charge them from bowl 2 to bowl 3 where they're actually spendable. It creates this beautiful spatial tension where proximity to opponents simultaneously helps you with power generation, but also helps them.
Where they diverge really meaningfully is in the strategic depth layers and how they approach victory point systems. Terra Mystica has 4 cult tracks: fire, water, earth, air, where you send priests to advance your position. Your final position on each track determines endgame scoring: 8 VP for first place, 4 VP for second place, 2 VP for third place. It's straightforward and deterministic. Every faction starts equal on these tracks. In our games, cult track racing created intense, memorable competition. We'd be watching each other's priest movements like hawks, carefully calculating whether to commit to racing for first place on a specific track or settle for second place because another player was too far ahead.
And again, Age of Innovation completely reimagines this system with the science display. When you build schools, you're grabbing competency tiles that move you up the science tracks and also provide ongoing special abilities. But here's the twist that makes it complicated. The tiles are randomized each game and they grant books, an entirely new resource type, instead of or in addition to track advancement. In our playthroughs, every school build decision became this 5-minute calculation nightmare. This competency gives me 2 Earth steps and 1 blue book, but that one gives me 3 banking steps plus a discount on universities. I need blue books for this innovation tile, but green books for that one, and if I skip this now, it might get drafted by another player.
That's because you're genuinely bad at planning ahead. But seriously, the book economy is Age of Innovation's biggest mechanical addition, and it does add layers. Books come in 4 colors, matching science tracks, and you spend them on innovation tiles, essentially advanced technologies, granting powerful game-breaking abilities, or special actions at the bottom of the board. In our sessions, books created a whole strategic layer that Terra Mystica simply doesn't have at all. You're managing book colors, tracking what innovations other players might be pursuing, deciding whether to pursue innovation-heavy strategies or rely on standard building paths.
But did that additional layer add genuine strategic depth or just create cognitive overhead and decision fatigue? Terra Mystica's economy is workers to coins to buildings to power to more actions. Clean loops you can internalize. Age of Innovation adds workers to coins to buildings to power to books to innovations, and suddenly you're managing 5 resource types simultaneously with conversion rates that shift based on competency tiles you drafted at the beginning. It's more systems, but is it deeper thinking or just more complicated?
The modular faction draft in Age of Innovation is simultaneously its greatest strength and most frustrating weakness from a balance perspective. In our first Age of Innovation game, one player combined the Blessed race, which starts with a scholar, with the engineering terrain giving discounts on building upgrades, with a palace that granted 4 VP per university. This created an engine that outpaced everyone else by round 3. In Terra Mystica, factions are extensively playtested after years of refinement and expansion releases. Sure, some factions are stronger at specific player counts, but there's a decade of community wisdom about which factions counter which strategies.
Age of Innovation is Wild West territory for balance. Every single draft creates a faction no one has played before, no one has strategies tested against, no one has community wisdom about. Our third session, someone accidentally drafted a terrible combination: weak terrain, faction abilities that didn't synergize, a mediocre palace, and they were essentially out of contention by round 2. That situation never happens in Terra Mystica because the balance has been stress tested extensively.
Victory conditions are similar between games, but diverge significantly in clarity and predictability. Both use victory points. Highest total score after 6 rounds wins. Terra Mystica scoring is completely transparent and visible. Round tiles explicitly tell you what scores: 2 VP for Trading House built this round, or 5 VP for advancing on a cult tack. You know exactly what actions are worth points. You plan accordingly, you execute your strategy, you always know your approximate score trajectory at any moment. Age of Innovation adds hidden end-game innovation tiles that score based on your board state: 6 VP for bridge, 2 VP for school, variable scoring. These tiles are drafted early and hidden until final scoring. In theory, this adds tension and surprise. In practice, from our sessions, it just made planning harder without adding interesting decisions. I couldn't pivot my entire strategy based on what you're scoring because I literally didn't know what you were scoring.
Complexity-wise, teaching both games to new players showed us real differences. We taught Terra Mystica to your friend Mike in about 45 minutes of dedicated teaching, and by round 3, he was making competent, strategic decisions, understanding the core loops, making meaningful choices about resource allocation. Age of Innovation took us 90 minutes of teaching despite half the table already having Terra Mystica experience. The modular faction drafting, the book economy, the competency randomization affecting track advancement, the hidden innovation tiles, it created layers of exception-based rules that required constant qualification. Normally you'd do X, but this race does Y and your palace changes it to Z, and if you happen to have this competency tile, it was exhausting for the learner.
Player count performance varies dramatically between these games, and we tested extensively. At 2 players, Terra Mystica felt spacious, almost too spacious and lonely. We both built empires semi-independently, with cult track competition being the only real interaction point. Playtime dropped to 90 to 120 minutes, which was refreshing. Age of Innovation at 2 players suffered from severe decision paralysis and multiplayer solitaire dynamics. With fewer opponents, spatial tension on the board loosened significantly. significantly, making book optimization and innovation collecting the primary strategic focus instead of interaction. Players were essentially solving optimization puzzles independently.
3 players is Terra Mystica's absolute sweet spot from our experience. The map feels contested, but not completely cramped. You're bumping into opponents enough to trigger power generation regularly, but you're not totally boxed in. Cult track competition intensifies significantly. When you take the fire track space I needed, it feels like genuine interaction. Our 3-player games consistently ran 2 to 2.5 hours and felt perfectly paced with strategic breathing room.
4 players is where Age of Innovation exposed its biggest weakness: severe downtime and analysis paralysis, compounding. With 4 players each taking 3 to 5 minutes per action, calculating books, innovations, and competency tile combos, you're waiting 45 to 60 minutes between your turns in later rounds. When Sarah played with us the one time, her natural analysis paralysis tendencies turned the game into a 4-hour slog where turns took forever and engagement died.
Terra Mystica at 4 players is where the game shines absolutely brightest. The board is tight and contested, blocking becomes critical and memorable, power charging happens constantly and creates interaction. That session where you boxed me into exactly 3 hexes and prevented my entire expansion plan, I'm still bitter about it. That's the kind of memorable, meaningful interaction Age of Innovation doesn't generate. Our 4-player Terra Mystica games hit 2.5 to 3 hours and felt epic and competitive.
Strategic depth versus complexity is genuinely the million-dollar question separating these games. Terra Mystica has shallow rules overhead relative to its strategic depth. Once you understand the core actions, terraform, build, upgrade, manage power, strategy emerges from faction matchups, careful map reading, round scoring optimization, cult track positioning, town timing decisions, and power bowl management. After 3 plays, we were making competent strategic decisions. After 10 plays, sophisticated patterns emerged. Skill ceiling is high. Tournament Terra Mystica players are measurably better than casual players because the game's completely deterministic nature means superior planning wins consistently. Luck versus skill balance is roughly 5% luck and 95% pure skill.
Honestly, no. The additional systems create tactical complexity, more decisions per turn, more resource conversions, more combo possibilities, but not deeper strategy. Faction imbalance means draft luck matters as much as gameplay skill. If you happen to draft synergistic combinations and I don't, you have a massive advantage before the game even starts. Competency randomization makes long-term strategic pattern development impossible. Innovation tiles are powerful but random. Getting the right innovation for your specific faction draft is luck-dependent. Luck versus skill balance is approximately 25% luck and 75% skill, compared to Terra Mystica's near-pure skill determination.
Player interaction in both games is fundamentally indirect competition without direct combat, theft, or destruction. Interaction comes through spatial blocking, power generation from building adjacently, bonus tile competition, cult or science track racing, and endgame area majority scoring. In our 4-player Terra Mystica sessions, player interaction was constant and genuinely meaningful. Every single build decision had ripple effects. If I build here, I trigger 3 power for her, but I block his expansion path. She's racing me on the fire track. Do I send a priest to compete or pivot to water? He grabbed the spade bonus tile I needed. Now I have to spend 2 extra terraforming actions. The game creates this beautiful tension where proximity is simultaneously beneficial and harmful.
Age of Innovation's player interaction felt diluted in comparison. With so many viable strategic paths, different book colors, different innovations, different competencies, players often optimize their own personal engines rather than actively disrupting opponents. That 4-player session where all 4 of us pursued completely different innovation tiles, targeting different book colors and different science tracks, the game became multiplayer solitaire, where we occasionally bumped into each other spatially on the map, but weren't actually competing strategically or interacting meaningfully.
Terra Mystica creates knife fight moments in endgame. You took my cult track space, now I can't hit first place, and you cost me 8 victory points. Those confrontations are memorable and personal. Age of Innovation's memorable moments were system-driven rather than player-driven. My innovation tile comboed perfectly with my palace ability to score 30 points. Cool for you, genuinely boring for everyone else watching. For competitive groups wanting to turn deterministic, skill-testing optimization puzzles, Terra Mystica delivers consistently.
Components and production value matter to table presence and enjoyment. Terra Mystica's second edition has thick cardboard for main board and player boards, solid wooden meeples for buildings in 5-player colors, tons of wooden discs for power tokens, thick cardboard resource tokens. Dennis Lohausen's art is functional but bland. Faction boards are text-heavy with minimal flavor art. The main board is colorful, maybe too colorful, with confetti explosion of terrains, but readable. Production issues include buildings not fitting snugly so they slide around, zero box insert forcing tedious component organization, and faction boards that curl slightly over time. Overall rating, 7 out of 10. Functional and durable, but aesthetically uninspired.
Age of Innovation has objectively superior components. Dual-layered player boards with recessed areas so buildings stay in place. That's a massive upgrade over Terra Mystica's sliding buildings. Same hex grid clarity, same wooden meeples now called workshops and guilds, but those recessed boards feel genuinely premium. Modular faction components are thick cardboard tiles, very durable, shuffle-friendly. Books are wooden cubes distinct from power tokens. Faction art is evocative, competency tiles have clear thematic illustrations, the science display is elegantly organized. Everything pops visually without being garish. Information hierarchy is perfect. Important icons are large, flavor text is small, color coding consistent. Overall rating 9 out of 10 for stunning art and premium components. But the complete absence of any box insert again makes setup a nightmare with all the modular pieces.
Cost comparison is genuinely interesting. Terra Mystica base game runs $60–$80 in the market, while the big box with base plus Fire and Ice expansion, Merchants of the Seas, and Automa Solo Mode costs $120. Age of Innovation base is $70–$90. After 25 plays of Terra Mystica and 8 plays of Age of Innovation before our group genuinely fatigued, Terra Mystica's tighter design encourages more replays. Age of Innovation promises 1,400 faction combinations with randomized competency tiles and randomized innovation tiles each game. On paper, infinitely replayable. In practice, the huge decision space creates fatigue rather than excitement. After 5 plays, we felt like we were learning a completely new game each session rather than mastering an existing one.
Replayability factors differ significantly. Terra Mystica offers 14 factions with distinct playstyles, round tile randomization from a larger pool, bonus tile variability, and opponent faction matchup variety. After 20+ plays, we hadn't exhausted the faction combinations and interaction possibilities. Each faction has optimal strategies that adapt based on opponents chosen and which round tiles appear. Age of Innovation promises 1,400 faction combinations with randomized competency tiles and randomized innovation tiles each game. On paper, infinitely replayable. In practice, the huge decision space creates fatigue rather than excitement. After 5 plays, we felt like we were learning a completely new game each session rather than mastering an existing one.
Final verdict time. Buy Age of Innovation if you've already played Terra Mystica 20+ times and genuinely crave strategic variety. It's Terra Mystica 2.0, specifically designed for veterans. If you love sandbox drafting and combo discovery more than competitive balance, Age of Innovation delivers that. If you primarily play solo, it includes solo mode in the box, while Terra Mystica requires purchasing the Automa expansion separately. Buy it if your group genuinely doesn't mind 3 to 4 hour sessions and doesn't include analysis paralysis prone players who slow everything down. But skip Age of Innovation if you're new to heavy Euros or unfamiliar with Terra Mystica. It's not an appropriate entry point. If your group values competitive balance and skill-testing gameplay, the modular factions create unpredictable imbalance. If you have analysis paralysis prone players, the decision trees turn 3-hour games into 5-hour ordeals. If you're budget conscious, at $70 to $90, it's genuinely expensive.
Buy Terra Mystica if you want the best entry point to heavy Euros available. It's complex but learnable, with clear strategic goals and minimal randomness. If you value skill-testing deterministic gameplay where randomness plays nearly no role, Terra Mystica delivers. If your group replays favorites rather than chasing constant novelty, 14 factions provide years of replayability. The big box at $120 is incredible value for 20 factions, expanded maps, and solo mode included.
Skip Terra Mystica if you hate repetitive games and constantly crave new content. After 30+ plays, you'll absolutely feel pattern repetition. If you hate bland art and care deeply about table presence, Age of Innovation wins. If you want solo play without buying the Automa expansion, Age of Innovation includes it.
Terra Mystica Pros. Tight and balanced gameplay with 14 distinct factions, significantly lower complexity and faster teaching time, better value especially with the big box bundle, faster setup and more portable, massive community support with faction tier lists and strategy guides. Cons: genuinely bland art, no solo mode without expansion, can feel solved after 30+ plays, cult tracks are thematically disconnected, and the box has no insert.
Age of Innovation Pros, premium dual-layered boards. 1,428 faction combinations promise near-infinite variety, included solo mode with solid automa, modular competency and innovation systems add strategic layers, fresh content for Terra Mystica veterans. Cons: significantly higher complexity and longer teaching time, modular factions create balance issues and luck, worse downtime and analysis paralysis, tedious setup without a third-party insert, and overpriced at $70 to $90.
Our final recommendation: buy Terra Mystica Big Box. Age of Innovation solves problems Terra Mystica doesn't have while creating entirely new problems. The modular faction system sounds amazing on paper. 1,428 combinations, infinite replayability, but in practice, it's exhausting. Every game feels like learning a new variant rather than mastering an existing one.
Terra Mystica is a genuine modern classic. It's brutal, deterministic, unforgiving, but that's exactly why it's satisfying. When you win, you earned it through superior planning. The 14 factions are balanced after years of community play. The big box gives 20 factions, multiple maps, and solar mode for $120. Unbeatable value. Yes, Terra Mystica looks uglier. Yes, components are less premium, but gameplay trumps aesthetics, and Terra Mystica's gameplay is measurably tighter.
So here's the final word. We're both keeping Terra Mystica permanently. I'm selling my Age of Innovation copy because after 25 Terra Mystica plays and 8 of Age of Innovation, I know which I'll replay. Thanks for hanging with us. We're Board Game Critique, and we'll catch you in the next one.